Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the seventh edition of Nice Fiction Festival, completely online for this year, like last year. And that's a big and wonderful meeting we have now with Mr. Francesco Verso. He's a close
Hello.
friend. Welcome, Francesco. I'm very
Welcome.
happy to have you to have this meeting with you. So thank you very much first to be here
It's a
with me.
pleasure.
Yeah, for Nice Fiction. So we have 1 hour to share a lot of things, a lot of ideas, a lot of perspective. And I would like just to start with one thing before sharing my screen and a little surprise for you. The first thing we have to speak right now, because after we could perhaps not have time enough. So Fuji, the Eurocon, you are in Fuji, you are one of the organization in Fuji. It will be on what day? Could you say to
From the fourth,
everyone?
from the 14th to the 18th of July. So it's 4 days and a long weekend in approximately 1 hour south of Rome.
Or Rome?
And yes, we have just started to announce some of the most important guests of honor. We have Ian McDonald.
Yeah.
We have a scientific track, which is very good. So the occasion to have again an in-person convention is very good. I hope some people will be vaccinated by that time and
Yeah.
will take this chance
Yeah.
to come to Rome and have some time together and talk about science fiction.
That would be perfect. And you have a very nice team to organize the Eurocon. So it will be a huge event. So don't forget it. The Eurocon in Fuji, 1 hour south from Rome. Thank you, Francesco. Now we speak totally, completely about your work, about your beliefs, about your vision of the future fiction, of course. And so I would like to do that in 3 times, in 3 parts. First, speaking about your work as a writer, first, then speaking about your work as an editor with future fiction, and at the last part, I would like to speak about the international ways of science fiction could grow in this new world we are entering in this new world.
Yeah.
So if it's okay for you, I've prepared a screen to share. So I share my screen, and we start with your work. So first of all, I call you, and that's my pleasure to do that, because you have written a very nice paper about it. I call you the wanderer of tomorrow, and I think it's a good way to see you, because you are very, very international author. Even if you write in English or in Italian, you have links to for every countries, quite every countries in the world. So perhaps my first question is to turn back your mind from the beginning and think about when you started to write. I think, if I'm correct, you started to write in 1996. That's right. Your first story was published at the end of the 20th century. And how do you become a science fiction writer? What was the very beginning of your work?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for this wonderful introduction. I feel like I've been walking and running and traveling a long time indeed. So yes, it's been quite some time, and it's been really hard. I can say that it's still difficult, but now satisfactions are much more than before. When I started, I had no idea about writing a story and writing science fiction. I'm a total outsider. I have a major in economy, environmental economics, actually. I had no literary background. I just had a lot of enthusiasm and passion I had the opportunity to go and study in Amsterdam, where there was a bookstore full of US and UK paperbacks of science fiction, and I spent the time there reading in English. That's where I improved my language. And I started to read these stories and think, well, maybe, you know, I could do that. I could try. And at the beginning, I didn't know nothing about the craft of storytelling. I learned step by step with all the mistakes. I started to write long, very long, too long novels, which I had to edit a long time. But then I was lucky because with my second novel, I won the Italian National Science Fiction Award. It was 2004 when I sent the first manuscript. And with the first novel, I just arrived finalist. And it was really not a, I mean, the novel had a lot of editing, really. It wasn't ready for publication. But then with the second novel, I won, and I thought, well, maybe this is the occasion, this is the chance I have to take to turn my life. And I stopped being an IT specialist in IBM and become a full-time writer. That's where it started.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you very much for this rememberings. And you said you started with UK and USA authors, paperbacks. What were we have all of us have, you know, a special book in our mind. And so what was your magic book? It was a book of Heinlein, perhaps, of Clifford Seamack, or Christopher Priest. I don't know who were.
It was Dune. It was
Dune.
Frank Herbert. Yes, it was Frank Herbert. And I read the whole series. That was really the book that introduced me to science fiction. But the book that convinced me to write probably was Neuromancer by
William Gibson.
Yes.
Recently retranslated here in France, and we have spoken about Neuromancer a few hours ago with my friend Yannick Rumpala. So Dune was the very beginning, and that's a very nice beginning, a very delicate and perfect beginning. And so you started to think that you could write for a living, and that was wonderful for you, of course. And in Italy. And I know a little Italy because I am from Italian origin too. So I go sometimes in Italy, and I see on the library there is a lot of books of American science fiction. Do you try in the very beginning years from you in 2004, 5, and 6? Do you try to create or to enter a community of Italian science fiction writers?
Yes. I've been a part of a group of writers that are called connettivisti, kind of nexialism, the idea of connecting different disciplines to achieve something bigger. And for maybe 3 or 4 years, I started to experiment on some storytelling, and also to collaborate with a small publisher, Kippel, where I try to test my knowledge and abilities also as an editor. So that's where it started, and I'm really thankful for this group of people that really welcomed me and opened me the doors of science fiction, because I was didn't know nobody. I sent my manuscript to in the envelope. I mean, it was still the mail, the snail mail, and just like that. I mean, no other connection at all.
Okay, and so that's very, very interesting, because even often sometimes in France we start with a group, and so the connectivism was yours. And how would you define, before you become a bishop of Solarpunk, how would you define the style and the subject of your first science fiction stories? What was your favorite point of view or favorite subject to write?
Yes, let's say that I've been writing at the moment 6 novels, and slightly I've come to realize that I have been thinking and writing and analyzing the concept of the body, how the body is affected by technology, what is the relationship between innovation technology and the biopolitics that revolve around the use of our body. So I started with a very straightforward post-cyberpunk stories. That's where I come from. I mean, I think that the science fiction has a political voice, a political meaning. It depicts the future, trying to say something relevant about the present. So as we see the emergence of microelectronics or the prosthetics or all these elements, I see the emergence of the necessity of a new ethic for our bodies. How do we treat our bodies, the limits, the rights? And so that's where the first 3 novels really kind of try to talk about.
Okay. And we had yesterday a panel about biopunk. It was a lecture from Fran Basile. And would you say that even before exists the term biopunk, you were in this field, between cyberpunk and biopunk, writing your first novel around the function and the definition and the transformation of the body?
Yes, it's really something that interests me. How, as an individual level, but also at a society, social level, this deployment of technologies affect our psychology and our sociology. So the use of the body has many different kind of consequences and impacts, and that's really what interests me, because then I came to realize that my big theme is really anthropology and how different cultures cope with sometimes different technology, sometimes the same technology, like William Gibson used to say, the future is already here, but it's not evenly distributed. So that's something I've analyzed over the course of the last 3 novels.
So you have an anthropological approach for science fiction, and that's perfect for me, of course. I like it very much. Now you are a very known and very important editor of future fiction around the world, but in Italy, of course. Still speaking first about your work as a writer, have you still time to write, to develop your new projects, or the future fiction stuff is beginning to become too important, too wide, and you have less time to write fictions?
Yeah, this is a wonderful question, because I always ask myself, who am I now? Because the editor is eating up all the time of the writer, and as you said, yes, I have much less time to dedicate to the beauty of writing, which actually means being alone on your own, without distraction, and just be there until your hands are bleeding or hurting so much that you have to stop. So I can't do that very much now. And let's say that for the last 7 years, I've been writing a lot. I wrote 6 novels. And the last was a huge enterprise. It was the biggest thing and the most important thing. It took me 8 years to write The Walkers.
Explain. It was what was the subject?
Yeah, it's one of the first Solarpunk novels ever written, and it's made of 2 books. Each one is around 300 pages, so it's a big thing.
Big thing, big novel.
Yes, after I finished that, I thought I want to rest. I want to, take a time to maybe write some short stories, spin-offs of this huge universe on Earth that I've created, revolving around nanotechnology, sedentary life, nomadic, 3D printing. So that took me so much that now I'm enjoying like doing something different. Of course, sometimes I'm thinking like, what novels will I write after this big book? I have some ideas, but I'm also a bit scared that book will be my, the peak of my writing. I don't know.
Yeah, the life is always making surprise for us. Yeah. So when you think you are not, you have no time to write, you have a wonderful idea, and when you want to write, you have no idea. You want to can be more an editor, and so I'm sure you will write a lot of books in the future years. And speaking about futures now, we could speak now about the wonderful adventure of future fiction. So future fiction, you created future fiction in when it started precisely. What was the first step about future fiction?
Well, the idea was around 2014 when I read the introduction of A Clockwork Orange, the famous book, and Anthony Burgess, he said that if he would define this novel, he would call it FUTFIC, future fiction, and that struck me. And so I took this this definition and applied to the kind of research that I'm doing at the moment. So it's already 7 years that I'm doing this.
Okay, so it was a very it was before you start writing in one sense. This idea you always had this idea of creating
no.
fiction.
2014. So
2014. Sorry,
yes,
sorry.
Yes.
I was thinking. Okay, so it was after, and you call it future fiction with Anthony Burgess. Okay, I listened. I understood that. So the very beginning of future fiction was the first book of future fiction. What was it?
Oh, we started as a native, as a digital small press publishing ebooks online. Then it was like an imprint of another small press, but just like 4 or 5 years ago, I decided that this project had the energy and the qualities to stand on its own legs. So with other friends, especially one, Francesco Mantovani, who helped me and supported me, and my wife, of course, we created a cultural association, and then we started. And the first book was like a collection of short stories.
Okay, and first you have collected stories, Italian stories in the very beginning, or it was just international since the first step?
No, let's say that the idea was to try to map what was happening in the rest of the world, because as you said, we all grew up with American and US with an English science fiction, and I asked myself, what happened to the rest of the world? What happened to the visions of the even our neighbors, the French, the Spanish, the German? I mean, there was nothing translated from these languages, something maybe from France, but for the rest, it was really nothing. And I was thinking about the cultural loss that we as science fiction readers are experimenting, because we just see one vision of the world, one vision of the future. And that's where it all started. And I, of course, now try to represent as many futures as possible, giving a chance to everybody, to all cultures, to all languages, because the problem is the translation.
Of course, of course. And so in France, for instance, for many, many, many years, we only saw, American and UK science fiction and a little Italian science fiction and some Russian too science fiction. But we didn't have all this vision, this wide vision you have in future fiction with all countries. So my next question is this one. Do you think science fiction has specific ways regarding the culture of every nation, or there is something very strong which is above every nation, or every science fiction in every nation is different?
Yeah, this is of course a complicated question. Now, I tend to believe that there is something called native innovation. There is an original way to solve local problems, to deal with innovation in a particular way that is driven by history, anthropology, the genius loci, what we call in Italy, the spirit of the place, something that happens just there. You know, if you have your beautiful hills in France, you grow wine. If you don't have them, you have beer. You have another thing. You know, so the fact that we are all now experiencing one single technology, or at least one single source of technology, one single source of innovation, one single definition of progress, it kind of shadows all the different possible futures that have never been developed because of these longa manus, of this extended power of international globalization. Call it imperialism, call it colonization, call it what you like, but it's this imposing the vision of somebody else onto other local communities, which in a way feel like blessed because the colonizer came to them, but at the end, in the long term, they are deprived of their own identity. So we all know everything that happens from MTV to Hollywood and Metro Goldwyn Mayer and all the Oscars and stuff, and we don't know what happens in our own country or what happened in our neighboring country.
Yeah, that's like I don't know how to say in English, an angle mort, when you can see the part of the road, and with future fiction you open the vision, of course. So we see a map, a worldwide map you gave to me for preparing this panel, and all these green points represent a future you have published. And I would like to know what future published from the worldwide make you more proud.
Oh, let's say
if you have one, of course.
Well, in a way, these are amazing journeys into future. So I'm really a wanderer, as you correctly said. I like to explore, and I think science fiction is about exploring, right? So we like to explore other worlds, but we don't explore other countries, you know. So I keep it literally as that, and of course, thanks to Ken Liu, I had the opportunity to intercept the global phenomenon of Chinese science fiction. So, of course, that I'm very proud of having brought to Italy a lot of Chinese science fiction authors. I've even invited them. I've invited Chen Chufan, Xia Jia, Wang Jinkang, Zhang Ran, and many more are coming to have a tour here. And on the other side, I've been invited 6 times over the last 3 years in China. So, of course, I am kind of experimenting the incredible progress and futuristic achievements that China is living, and the future, I can say, that is coming also from the East at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, the future is coming where everything started at East, as we say, like historian, of course,
Yep.
in the very high antiquity. So we can read your new sense of wonder is sense of wonder. And
Yes.
when we are thinking about the capacity, the ability of science fiction to empathize a new world, and we often speak about sense of wonder, and the sense of wonder, I think, is a wonderful expression. I don't know if you use it from a lot of years or just very recently, but sense of wonder is really open mind about science fiction, to think that science fiction is not longer American science fiction. The imperialism of Occident is finished now. And it's a shame, because in France, we are, I think, I hope I'm not saying some silly things, but we are not so engaged in this wandering. We are open-minded, of course. We are French, so we are open-minded. But I don't see in the libraries, I don't see in the editors a lot of East science fiction and a lot of Chinese science fiction. We have Liu Xingqin, of course, but it's not the big visibility. And one thing I would like to ask to you is, when you sell books, digital books, the readers, the Italian readers, buy really every books you publish in Chinese science fiction. They're open-minded of this.
Well, let me say that even though you feel that France is not so open, you are better off than many other countries. I know that you are publishing more Japanese and Chinese than some other countries, and you have presence of different authors also at Grand Prix de l'Imaginaire or Utopial. You are in a very good position. Trust me.
Yeah, we are in not so bad position, I would say, but
yes.
We are more European still than really East. But I don't want to insist, because I think some editors will take their phone and insult me in a few minutes.
No, I mean, there's room for improvement. That's for
yeah,
sure. Yes, that's for
yeah,
sure.
there's room for improvement in France,
yes,
and that's a good thing to say. So the sense of wonder. Go.
No, but I wanted to answer the other question.
Yeah.
We do sell books in print and paperbacks and ebooks. And let me tell you that the Chinese science fiction books are our bestsellers. I mean, for a small press like us, okay?
Yeah.
Of course. But I can say that it is just a matter of investment. If we keep pushing this idea of scouting for the best stories, not just the common ones, if we steer the wheel and show that science fiction is being written with success and quality all over the world, the people follow. The people are curious. They want to know, oh, China or India or Brazil or Mexico, these are big, important countries. In literary fiction, there is no dominance. Of course, there is a predominance of the English language, but you can read Japanese authors, you can read French authors, you can read Russian authors, not so many, but in science fiction, this phenomenon is really, really, bad. I mean, so there's a lot of room for improvement here.
Okay, it's just a beginning, we could say, but a very nice beginning. Your last book, I think, one of the latest book was a book about African science fiction.
Yes.
And can you speak about it?
Yes. Again, we know over the last 5 or 10 years, but even in the 70s, a phenomenon called Afrofuturism. It was born, of course, as a movement in the U.S. From the Grace Jones and Sun Ra, and it started from music. to imagine an Afrofuturism, to give, you know, the right to the Black people. All these issues are so important, but still, they are in a way American. Of course, they are with their roots in the African continent, but the the fact that they write in English, the fact that they are so visible and they are part of an industry that is so powerful, it puts them in a very better position in respect to somebody that writes in French in Africa, or that writes in Portuguese in Mozambique, or that writes in English in Ghana, or in other in Kenya, you know. So I wanted to give visibility to these voices that are really underrepresented, which now they are getting together. They have the No More Words, which is a very good and nice and important word for African science fiction. And I scouted a lot for more than a year to find these stories, and I'm very satisfied because this is the first ever anthology of African science fiction to be published in Italian language. So we're bringing new and, I mean, important voices and stories to Italian readers. And I'm trying to build a network with other small presses to, you know, engage in translation.
And that's a very interesting thing, because what you just have said now about the link between small press around the world. Do you think that, like in the Solarpunk, we're going to speak about it in a few minutes, do you think, like in a Solarpunk, the future is in the hands of small press editors all around the world, and not the big editors? I mean, making the choice of digital production and a small structure with very huge, very strong links between them all around the world. That's a shape of the things to come.
let's say that the small presses are the scouters. The small presses are the explorers, the early adapters, the avant-garde. Then the big industry comes and makes these trends mainstream. So if I am clear in my identity, I know what I'm doing. I'm trying to discover the next Mape, the next important player. And of course, I can never be a big industry. So it's important for me to be clear in my identity. And if we create this network between, I don't know, France, Germany, Italy, Brazil, you know, India, and Japan, I think we can start to disentangle from what I call the Anglophone magnetism. The fact that we all try to translate into one language, English, and then to translate back into other languages. So, for example, I had a book written in Italian, but if I want to send it to Brazil, I have to translate it in English. Otherwise, they would not read it. So this is not natural. This is not right, and it's not even fair, because the cost of the translation is always on the shoulders of the poor writer, while all the English-speaking writers, they don't have to think about translating their works.
Of course. And I would like to show you to everyone the other books of future fiction, and in the same vision about you already spoken together. So from Russia, from South America, and Greece,
yes,
Cuba too.
Cuba,
and
yes.
I've met
Germany.
you Yeah, Germany. I like the name of Germany, obsolescence programmat. It's a little provocation, but very interesting. I like, especially as for me, because I wanted to make you a little surprise, fioriranno I melli su Marte. I mean, there will be apple trees on Mars.
Mhm.
And you, of course, you have chosen this title about the old song of the conquest, space conquest in Russia, of course.
Yes, yes.
And so we can listen it just for
Oh,
a minute,
wow.
for the pleasure,
Oh, wow.
if it starts.
Жить и верить — это замечательно. Перед нами небывалые пути. Утверждают космонавты и мечтатели, что на Марсе будут яблони цвести. Утверждают космонавты и мечтатели, что на Марсе будут яблони.
So it was
Wow.
a very nice song. I like it very much. So I
Wow.
wanted to share with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
My friend,
Спасибо, спасибо большое.
And it speaks, of course, about the conquest of space. And that's perfect to speak about Solarpunk too, in one sense.
Yeah.
So, and I hope that one day we will have future fiction on Mars, of course.
Wow.
So, what about now Solarpunk? Alors, we have a panel after later in the evening with Jean-Louis Trudel and Sylvie Denis about Solarpunk, but I would like to hear your definition, how you define Solarpunk for yourself before sharing the Solarpunk field. What is Solarpunk for you first?
Well, for me, there are many definitions, as you said, that the idea is that I'm a bit tired of this green, pessimistic and nihilistic vision of the future, right? Of course, there are problems. So Solarpunk is not, a shiny, happy people kind of narrative. No, it's like digging your hands into the problem and trying to fix something. Trying to be part of the solution, trying to imagine an exit strategy to the current situation we are living, whether it's climate change, capitalism not working, right? Whether it's pandemic, a fight on vaccines that the copyright is not helping people to get. This kind of structure, hierarchy, patriarchy, this vision that doesn't value people more than money, So I think the narratives have to kind of include these voices, this vision, this different attitude, this behavior, a new generation. What kind of future we are giving to the children? I think that science fiction is a counterphase. When the times are very good, science fiction kind of says, okay, here's a warning, in the 50s, in the 60s, the economy is booming in the US, but then you had Philip Dick saying, is this really the reality? Aren't we the aliens? Is this really more fridges is the thing to do? More appliances, more devices, more cars? And now that the society is doing so bad, with Trumpism, with fascism, with climate change, with capitalism really at the sucking up everything, even our tracking our behavior, our desires, everything, the capitalism of surveillance, then we need positive approaches. We need to try to disentangle from this kind of dark and grim scenario that they want us to believe, so that we are weaker in a way, you know? And so I think that the narrative of the lone hero can be, I'm not saying substitute, but sometimes you can have narratives that include communities, include people, include the people that have been excluded from the previous narratives.
Yeah. Could you define perhaps Solarpunk as a criticism of state too? And I mean of the logical of top-down decision? And Solarpunk would be a sort of reverse logical, opposite logic of bottom-up. I mean, the solution of the future come by the people themselves, in fact. And so I think in this sort of vision, it's very important to choose well your characters of the story. Yes. And so could you, for everyone, speak us about one of your character, one of your Solarpunk stories character you like, and how you have created this character in this sort of vision of the Solarpunk in one of your books.
Yeah. There is a character from the Walkers, I Camminatori. He's quite rich guy living in Rome. He's a perfumery. He works in a futuristic perfumery. He makes smart fumes, very dynamic, changing over time perfumes. And he has a problem with food. He's very fat, very obese because of the food intake, because of the calories, because of the industrial food. And one day he really has to change his diet. He has to really change his life, because otherwise he will die. And he takes these nanotechnologies, these real nanites that change his anatomy. Instead of eating 3-4 times a day, he starts to eat once a month. And this changes everything in his life, because he quits his job, quits his position, and decide to bring this nanotechnology to the people that are endangered, the populations across India or Africa, that because they are starving, because they have no food, they are dying. So he wants to give them these little nanorobots. He wants to set them free from the cycle of nutrition, of industrial nutrition, of industrial agriculture. So this technology really frees them. So what I'm trying to say with this character is that we have the tools to set ourselves free, but we don't see this freedom, because this freedom comes with a cost, of course. And we are very lazy as a species. We tend to stay in our comfort zone. And even though there is a very green future, we take a distance from that and prefer to stay in our car and drive hours and hours, even though we drive through the hills, but we never leave the car and walk there, So when I started to write this book, I was 92 kilograms, and now I am 80 around. And I did this on my person because I wanted to feel this kind of freedom. I wanted to write and live inside, within this character, to know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think that it's very, very interesting, because you, in one sense, you make the link between the beginning of your story as a writer and now, because it's by the body, the change come with the body. Without the body, of course, I understand well, the changes cannot exist. So if we change the body, we change the mind too. If I read well what you have, if I listen well what you have said.
Yes, it doesn't matter where it starts. You can change the mind and then the body. doesn't matter. But you have to start a change.
And you have this optimistic vision of technology, because that's, for example, we spoke about Punk more earlier in the day, and L'Alex Andrea was explaining us that Punk was stories without technology, with very low tech technology. And when you speak about your example and your vision of Solarpunk, I more listen, I more hear that technology can save us if it's been used well.
The important element is autonomy and self-governance.
Yeah.
The thing is that what can I do with that technology that I cannot use? Like, make an example. When I was young, I had the PC. I opened the motherboard. I changed the chips. I changed the hard drive. I connect. I change the DIMMs. I upgrade the all the possible things, the processor and stuff. Now, with these, I can't open anything. This is not mine. This is something I cannot upgrade. So I'm just a consumer. So in the walkers, I try to create, of course, not me, but Toffler, an important thinker. The prosumer. We have to become the producer and the consumer. We have to disengage from this network of being just the users. We need to be, and through open networks and open source and 3D printing and mesh computing, we can do that now.
And the solutions are local. In fact, we have tried to be independent and autonomy on a local way, in fact, around perhaps cities or villages, and with the sharing of technology. That it's quite a utopia, you know. And I think
Ugo, think about the Middle Age, right? It was like that. I mean, we used local economies to be self-sustainable, right?
Yeah, but unfortunately, the Middle Age was a very inegalitarian society.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying we need to take the best.
The both.
Time. Yeah, the best.
The best of both worlds, as your light's title said, Due Mondi. Yes. And so I see more and more clearly why you are so interested in Chinese science fiction too, because China has a strange link with states and Confucianism, the respect of the natural way of life, in one sense. Yes. And there is this ambiguity I can see in the Chinese cultural science history. Perhaps it makes sense when you work with the Chinese. These authors, unfortunately, I don't know them, but they are writing more space opera science fiction, or solarpunk completely science fiction, or very negative science fiction. Have you some example? I have a share screen too.
Yeah. Well, let's say that they are a lot. So as you can imagine, a country with 1.5 billion people has a lot of writers.
Yeah, of course.
So they have, of course, the traditional science fiction writers like Liu Cixin, Wang Jingkang, He Xue, Han Song. They can write about classical themes. Like Liu Cixin is comparable to A.C. Clarke, for example. But there is a middle generation that, for example, is Chen Qufan and Xia Jia and Mu Ming and Tang Fei, and there's Jiang Ran. There are many. They are more like into post-humanism, transhumanism, cyberpunk, a little bit of, a bit of solarpunk. That it's coming. I'm trying to bring the concept to China, but of course they have the concept of climate change, the concept of an environmental society. They have these, as you said, in their traditional knowledge, so there is everything. And now the new generation, people like 20, 25. They are really
very young.
Yes, and they have a global vision. So maybe they started in the US or in Japan. They grow up with manga. They they have video games. So it's really, really interesting because they have many sources of influences, and they can they have the advantage of living in a futuristic country. So they are already 10, 20 years into the future. And that gives them a very good leverage.
Okay, we see a Sinosphere. What was Sinosphere? It was an anthology. I didn't
let's say,
time to make my research on this book.
These three, Nebula, Sinosfera, and Artificina, they are anthologies of short stories in dual language with the Chinese text.
Okay.
The others are single author
novel.
Books. Yes, collection of short stories or novels, like in the case of the Gina Kanu one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and we started to reaching the end of our meeting, but it's not finished yet, and we have time. So I would like to ask you now, what about the future? What about the very near, close future? Not speaking about Fuji, we have already done that. So I will say hello to Flora and all the team. That's okay.
Hello.
But for you, your future, what is the project? What are the projects for your writer, as an editor of future fiction, and your vision? I want to hear your vision of the future of science fiction.
Thank you. Let's say I have a very good relationship with China. So the future passed from there in the sense that I'm waiting for a couple of novels to be published in China, Next Human and Bloodbusters. And my Chinese publisher will also publish a number of future fiction books. So I'm looking forward to go back there. Also because my friend Zhang Fan, he opened a wonderful science fiction center in Chongqing called the Fishing Fortress. And they are really developing incredible projects, having a translation center, having the musicals, having different kind of classes teaching, and I've been appointed the creative director of this center, and I will run a future fiction workshop for a generation of young and talented writers. So that's probably at the end of the year or the beginning of next year. On future fiction, I'm really starting a new series, which is comics. And of course, France, with your incredible bande dessinée, you are the masters of comics, and we're starting with young, talented authors that are illustrating some of the stories that we publish on future fiction. So that's a nice project I'm doing with my friend Emanuele Vicendone. And well, for the rest, I'm kind of working also as an agent, as a literary agent for China. So I'm trying to bring the rest of the world to China, and China to the rest of the world.
And what is the most difficult? It's to bring the rest of the world in China, I think, no?
Yes. Well, yes. Let's say both ways are difficult, because there is the translation. The translation, and the publishers are very resistant. And this is so strange, because they want to translate from English, but they don't want to get out of their comfort zone and translate from another language, which doesn't cost so much more. And you could even have grants and help. But translating from English, or translating from French, or from Spanish, or from German, it's not so much more expensive. But the idea of moving from the usual name, the usual US or UK name, to somebody which you have probably to invest and make a little bit more effort in some cases, then it stops the project. But I will not stop.
Yeah, of course, you never stops. And I have read your paper about sense of wonder. It was very, very interesting. And there is, to conclude, there is topics you speak about diversity. You say that diversity is not a good term. It's not enough. To speaking about the opening to diversity, it's not a good way to explain this. So could you, I have the sentence if you want, but could you say us why diversity it's not enough?
Because diversity implies a standard. I mean, why am I diverse from you? And who says, what is the standard? Is it the color? Is it the height? Is it the richness? Is it the language? Why? From which point of view I'm a diverse from somebody else? So in Europe, we don't need this, because every 200 kilometers, every 300 kilometers, we speak another language, we eat another food, we listen to another song, we dress in another way, we have another history. So we are naturally born diverse. And this is a trait of our culture. So I don't need to be diverse. I mean, I just want to be curious about other things, how you do things there in France, how you live there, how you build your houses, how you get your energy, stuff like that. The idea of a diversity, it's a kind of a dominant culture which is trying to create quotas to say, okay, we need to have the foreign language, you know, but I mean, I don't want to be in the foreign language of the Oscars. I mean, I want to be judged for the movie, you know, or I want to be judged for the book, not because I'm in the translation.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I thank you very much for everything, Francesco. I'm looking if we have questions, but I don't think we have questions, but perhaps I ask to our Angel, we speak to me, but you don't listen, of course. Do we have question for Francesco? No question now. Okay. So, you know, I will share my screen the last time. And again, I propose you to come back a few here to see this, because I think it's very representative. Digital future friction is spreading all over the world.
Yes.
Would you like to think about coming back of the paperbacks, perhaps for future friction? Not to be only or mainly, I think, by digital books, but starting again to make more and more paperbacks, or not?
Yeah, we're doing mostly paperbacks. After the first years, now paperbacks are selling more, and we are also publishing some books in English, and through Amazon we sell these books everywhere. So now if you use the technology well, you can do wonderful things. Of course, we're talking about small numbers, not big numbers. We know who we are. We are not a big industry, and will never be a big industry, but we are a small press, and we bring our identity to the people.
Yeah, I like this, the way you explain it. If we know who we are, we can bring it to the public, and that's very nice. So I hope next year or in future years, there will be more green points for all of us. And I like future fiction the way you make it exist, because it's very new for me, and I grow in a world where there was only American science fiction and French science fiction quite, and so now it's very, very open. Thank you Merci. Very much, Francesco. Merci beaucoup à toi.
My pleasure.
Et we will see you again in Fuji.
And 1 hour.
Any 1 hour for Solarpunk with Jean-Louis Trudel, but we'll see in Fuji in with Rio. Body.
You bodies, right.
Okay. Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cette table ronde vient de se terminer, mais le festival continue tout le week-end. Le programme complet est disponible sur nice-fiction.fr. Les stands vous attendent sur notre serveur Discord. Pensez également à visiter nos expositions 3D et n'hésitez pas à intervenir dans le chat des conférences et tables rondes si vous avez des questions.